It's the Murphy, Sam, and Jodi After the Show podcast, where we hang out a little bit longer, and we invite you to be a part of things also. You know, you can always hit us up on our socials. You can follow us on our YouTube channel, comment there. You can also send us a message on the TalkBack mic if you're listening on the iHeartRadio app.
So let's give you a little behind the scenes of a conversation I overheard that I wanted to know more about. Murphy, you had told Sam that a friend of ours, Jeremy, who is the only other type 1 diabetic that we work with, you're one, a type 1 diabetic, and so is he.
The odds are really slim of two type 1s working together like that, I know.
I know.
Because we're only like 6% of the diabetic population.
I was going to ask. You guys are special. Mm-hmm. Well, it is 6% of anything. So, but you were saying that he is about to go, I didn't catch the term, the name of this pump he's about to get on.
He's going on the Omnipod.
The Omnipod. But he's never been on a pump before. You've been on an insulin pump for a long time.
Yeah. For anybody that doesn't know, when you're a type 1 diabetic, you are insulin dependent. And for the record, there's nothing that you do to cause type 1 diabetes. It's not your diet. It's nothing other than the gene that you're born with. And so at some point, that gene, if it flips, if it's triggered, whatever the trigger is, your body goes from producing insulin to not producing insulin, which you can't live without. And that's also what converts sugar. When you digest food, it becomes sugar, which goes into your bloodstream, and then the insulin sweeps it out of the bloodstream and puts it into your cells for energy. That's how your body converts it to energy. Mm-hmm. That's why a lot of people say insulin is sort of the key to the lock that converts from bloodstream to energy cells. So anyway,
type 1 is a little different because your body is not producing insulin anymore at all.
That's right.
Whereas type 2 diabetics,
are insulin resistant.
They're just resistant, meaning their body still does produce some insulin and the body just doesn't use it correctly.
Right.
And so it's very different, although a very confusing, condition,
it can
disease.
Be. And so the insulin pump was invented in the 1980s. I think it was the same guy that did the Segway, invented the little scooter Segway thing.
What?
It was the same guy.
Yeah, same guy invented it.
Yeah.
Well,
and
he had a couple things up his sleeve, huh?
He did. But
unrelated things.
And both have actually been pretty cool things.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty important things.
Before you got on the pump, you were giving insulin you were giving shots.
Yeah. And they're still, they're type 1 diabetics that will still give shots. It's a lot easier than it used to be. I mean, with an insulin pen, it's a very thin needle. You really don't feel anything, So by mixing different insulins, you can do the same thing that I'm doing with the pump. I find it to be a little more difficult to manage that way, and it's a lot to think about, having to do the shots and all that. Whereas the pump pump goes with me wherever I go, and so I've been a pump wearer since 2000. I was diagnosed at the end of 1998, and I've been wearing a pump since 2000. Our friend Jeremy has been insulin dependent since his teen years also, and he's always given shots. So this is his first foray into the pump.
So there'll be a lot of pump discussions here at work, which is going to be sweet.
Yep, I'll show you mine if you show me yours.
Right. The reason I asked the question, I even bring it up, Murphy, is him having an Omnipod, which is the newest, latest, greatest.
Well, back
Isn't
up.
it?
It's not the newest, latest, greatest.
Oh.
The Omnipod's actually been around for a while.
Okay.
Omnipod is the difference between a standard pump and the Omnipod is that, and that's why you see a lot of kids, young type 1s, wearing the Omnipod because there's no tubing. With an insulin pump is called an infusion set. Mm-hmm. There's nothing surgical about it. It's a needle that you stick into your skin. It's in a couple of parts. It's a needle, it's tubing, and there's a cartridge inside of the pump that holds the insulin. And you have to change that tubing out, every couple of days at the insulin site, and the tubing itself you change when the cartridge runs out. And so there you've got those moving parts. I keep mine in my pocket. I cut a hole in all my pants pockets. So anybody that goes to Goodwill and gets some pants, and it's got a hole, it's probably mine. But so the tube just runs through, and I can attach it, because I keep my needle on my abdomen, but the Omnipod has no tubing.
And you don't think that's not attractive to you because you do have every once in a while you'll have a tubing issue. The tubing will get caught on a door handle, things like that. Yeah. And you're like, almost ripped it out of my.
It mostly gets caught on the cabinet the handles on our drawers in a kitchen, which is just amazing to me. I don't know how I get in position
it's the
where
height.
it does that.
It's where the cabinet pull is and the height of you where your insulin pump goes, which is in your side.
Right. So
to me, that sounds good.
But see,
no tube.
The Omnipod, most kids wear them because there's no tubing. It's the freedom. There's a lot of freedom that goes with that, and you control it with your smartphone, and that's how it doses and keeps track of things. Now, it's been around for a little bit, and it was offered to me at one point, but I don't unless they've changed it. And again, I'm not familiar with the latest version of the Omnipod, so I guess when our friend Jeremy gets it, I'll know more. The cartridge doesn't hold a whole lot of insulin, and I use about, I don't know, I'd use 110 units of insulin a day, something like that. And so my cartridge, I have to replace my cartridge every day and a half, roughly, because it only holds 250 to 300 units of insulin. The Omnipod holds less than that. And so I don't know. I don't want something I'm having to deal with every single day. And that's not me being prissy about it. It's if you live with type 1 diabetes, as long as I have, which is 25 years now, because you have to be vigilant all day, every day, 365/7, anything that is helpful there is a godsend.
Yeah.
So
even if it's half a day,
right.
It's still a half a day where you don't have to worry about it running out of insulin.
I mean, you both know that. You've seen that, with me. It is there's a good friend of mine. She calls her insulin pump her ball and chain.
Yes.
Because even though it gives life, it's constantly you're literally tied to it,
right.
And you're having to focus. It's going to call your attention multiple times throughout the day. And
with friends of ours, whenever I kind of have found myself in the position of having to sort of explain it, I just explain that you're having to do what your pancreas should be doing for you naturally, but stopped doing all those years ago.
Right.
Because I don't have to think about insulin being released into my body. It just happens when I eat pretzels or when I eat anything.
Right.
Because I'm not a type 1 diabetic, but you have to become your pancreas and eat and dose insulin. Or if your blood sugar gets too high, you need to dose insulin. It's just you're trying to manually do something that everybody else's body takes care of. And I found myself in that position the other night when we were with our friends for our weekend getaway. This story, the day after, at the end of Saturday, we were about to go to dinner, and you had to go upstairs and you had to I think you gave a shot or something like that because your because your blood sugar was really high. And our friend Audra was asking me some questions. I don't know if you could hear her because you were upstairs in the loft area, but she was asking me. She said, and you had said you were, I can't remember how high, but it was high. Your blood sugar was high. You told us the number, and you went upstairs, and she goes, "Is that really high?" I said, "That's really high." She said, "What's an average?" And I said, "I think the average is around 80." And she was like, "Whoa," because I think you were like 300 or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were. It was really high, and she got really concerned. And I just explained he's going to bring that down with insulin, and he'll probably be fine by the time we get to dinner. And then I remember thinking to myself at dinner, after dinner, if the question of dessert comes up, she's going to be concerned about you ordering dessert. And I'm thinking he's going to order dessert. And sure enough, as soon as you said, "Let's talk about dessert," she asked you, she was like, "Well, what about your blood sugar?"
Yeah.
It was funny to sort of predict that and then watch it play out.
Yeah, it was a good number.
She was concerned.
I know. It's just the manual giving of it. Mm-hmm. But, the thing is, even though I say it's, it's challenging, the positive is the technology exists, and you can live a normal, full life, no complications, in tight control by these wonderful tools that, medicine has provided these days. And so, So I'm curious to see how this helps for Jeremy, because he's having issues and challenges with his blood sugar going up at night. And it doesn't matter what you eat. Just because his blood sugar is going to 300 at night doesn't mean he's eating a bunch of cake and candy. Mm-hmm. Or and honestly, it's not just cake and candy. Rice,
anything,
potatoes,
but you have to eat
carb. Anything with carb in it is what raises your blood sugar.
Because it becomes sugar.
Yeah. So and honestly, without going too scientific on you, fat becomes sugar. But it takes a long time for the body to transition that. And it's weird as a diabetic. I can see that if I eat,
high fat pizza.
Like pizza is a good example. Or if I, decide that breakfast one morning is going to be a few hash browns with bacon and eggs and that kind of thing, that number doesn't grow until a couple of hours later. And that's the way that everybody's body does it too. You just don't know it in that moment.
And that's like, whenever you are low and you have to treat yourself with a little sugar dough or something, you grab candy or something, you have to grab something that goes right away.
Fast.
Yes.
As opposed to, well, I got to wait for this to break down, blah, 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 blah,
That's
blah.
why a candy bar is not an effective way of treating a low blood sugar.
It has
That's
too much
right.
fat. It's too slow. And when your blood sugar is low, you need fast sugar.
Yeah.
Something that goes fast. That's
Swedish
why
fish.
Murphy will order a Coke at a restaurant. Sitting there drinking Diet Coke, and they go, you know what? I actually need a real Coke now. And the waitress will be confused. The waiter will be confused. It's like, well, just trust. He needs a real Coke now.
Yeah, I
We've
don't give the explanations anymore because I don't want to scare people. And because people are helpful by nature. If it were an emergency, then I would absolutely say I need a Coke now because I'm diabetic. But if I don't, if I'm trending down, I'm just gonna just be normal. I don't need to call any attention to that, And so Jeremy, our friend again, who's converting to this, I'm excited for him because I'm hoping that this really makes life a little bit easier for him. For him, it's a combination of better control as he gets older so that, his blood sugar averages, the ones that we get measured, it's called an A1C, that you go in basically every 6 months, depending on the doctor or the endocrinologist you see. They'll want some want a little more. Most want you at the 6-month mark. And that's what he's really trying to work towards, getting that number down for himself and just a little more steady control, because those fluctuations in your body, because you don't make insulin, they're I say that they're tough on you. They just don't feel good. It truly is a hormonal imbalance, for lack of a better term, the fluctuation. But the reason they call it a blood sugar average is because, as good as science is, there is no perfect control. There's literally nothing yet that mimics what the islet cells of the pancreas actually do, other than the islet cells. And there's a whole lot of research that's still going on right now, and there are breakthroughs. They just haven't reached the whole thing yet of being able to genetically manufacture your own islet cells in a way where they're resistant to the body's white blood cells, because that's what happens. It's an immune disorder. Your body's white blood cells they do such a great job of protecting you against colds and viruses and all those other things. For whatever reason, when that switch flips as a type 1 diabetic, those islet cells become the enemy, and so your body's killing them.
Attacking it.
So your pancreas will continue to try to produce them for a little while, and the body continues to kill them. And then eventually the pancreas stops producing them. And so even an islet cell transplant doesn't work if you're not on immunosuppressing drugs, because your body's still going to go try to take out those islet cells. But anyway, I say that because the pump is awesome and gives you much greater control. And it's better than anything that's ever been out there. And the sensors that you can wear now from Dexcom and other companies that will, measure your blood sugar without you having to prick your finger constantly.
You used to do that.
And I did, yeah. I was pricking my finger 20 to 25 times a day before every meal and all that. That made it messy to complete paperwork sometimes.
I remember that sound.
Yeah.
We would order and you'd go, tink.
Yeah.
It goes, tink.
But, that technology, because it's faster, allows the body allows that pump and sensor combination to mimic more closely what your body would do.
When you work out, do you have to take your pump off?
No.
You don't want to take it off.
You don't catch the tubing on your dumbbells or anything?
Oh, no. It stays tucked away. Honestly, that's a good question. I've never run into an issue with that. I can double
under
tape
your
it.
shirt.
Yeah, I think because my shirt's covering it, it's not going to get caught in anything.
So you've never told Jodi you caught your tubing on a 500-pound deadlift?
No.
No, that wouldn't work anyway. I would know he wasn't doing a 500-pound deadlift.
Only if that was the reason that I couldn't lift it.
Okay,
it wasn't the way, Jodi. But,
I just bring it up honestly because when I heard you telling Sam that Jeremy's getting an Omnipod, I remember thinking, does that mean you are going to want, like, if he's getting something that's new and improved, are you going to,
tech envy
him with that? And we would be talking about a new, thing for you. But now that I know that it's not, it holds less insulin, I know that's a thing for you that you won't want to change it.
I'll have to study that because I don't know if that's changed or not. And in fact, the new version of the pump, because I wear a Tandem pump. Medtronic has pumps. Is Minimed?
Oh, Tandem is a name brand?
Yeah, Tandem is my pump.
It has nothing to do with jumping out of an airplane.
Tandem. Ooh.
Right. Omnipod is the name of that company too. Yeah. So it's Omnipod. Tandem is the pump that I wear. Dexcom, the G6 is the sensor I've got now. There's a G7, which is a newer version, and the updated version of my pump at some point that will no longer have a touchscreen and be fully controlled by a phone. That one does hold less insulin. So I'm going to have to kind of think that through as I go there. Mm-hmm. But, anyway, I'm excited.
Good that you have choices at least.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Missed any part of the show? Get it all on the Murphy, Sam, and Jodi podcast.